The Galfers road bike disc brake rotors, that's a tongue twister. How are they? Are they any good? Well, I've been testing them for the past few months here in the UK, and I've just been out to Mallorca to use them as well. So I think I've got a pretty good handle on how they behave now. I've got a 160 up front, a 140 in the rear, and I want to talk about all these things about weight, stopping power, brake fade, how good they look. Let's just get into it. All right, weight first. So for the pair, for the 160 front, 140 rear, these come in at 175 grams for the pair, which is about 40 grams lighter than the Dura-Ace rotors. So definitely some brake disc rotors worth considering if you're doing a weight weenie build. Not only that, they're not like the carbon tie ones that are like 200 quid a rotor. No, these, you can usually find them for about £40 per rotor, which is about £5 cheaper than the Dura-Ace ones. So lightweight for competitively priced. Stopping power. So surprisingly, the initial bite on these holds up very, very well. You've got a lot of grip on that disc rotor to begin with, and you can just really slow yourself and the bike down. Like I said, it's got a lot of bite, it's got a lot of power to begin with. Even though I've only got a 140 in the rear, and for someone of my weight, like I said, about 88 kilos at the moment, more than enough stopping power for the rear brake. 160 for me, perfect in the front as well. I don't need a 160 in the rear like SRAM usually comes with. I find it's actually a little bit too much stopping power, a little bit too easy to lock up. But yeah, I can still comfortably lock up the rear if I wanted to. That kind of like initial bite, that initial powerful stop usually lasts up to about 10 seconds, and then the brake fade starts to come in. Let's talk about brake fade. So as I just said there, the powerful braking, which I think is as powerful as the Shimano like Dura-Ace and Ultegra, as powerful as SRAM Force and Red for the first 10 seconds, then it starts to drop off. Now, like I said, I'm a heavy guy. If you're a lot lighter than me, which most of you probably are, especially if you're doing like a weight weenie build, then this is probably going to be less of an issue. But I found this to be more of an issue in the UK than I did out in Mallorca. In the UK, a lot of the time you have these like fairly steep hills that just stay steep until you have to hit like a junction or something, so you're stopping quite hard for quite a long period of time sometimes, and that's when you start to notice the brake fade. You're just losing power after about 10 seconds. I thought this was going to translate into things like hairpins and tight and twisty turns, but actually out in Mallorca I was doing the Col de Soyer descent into Soyer. Just having that little bit of time off the brakes recovers that braking force so quickly, so they seem to cool down very fast, and it just handled it really, really well. Like I said, I thought this was going to show up and suffer the further I got down the hill, but no, they just stayed powerful. So just having that rest period, just lifting off the brakes, letting these cool down a little bit, seemed to favour them really nicely. Even for the longer descents in Mallorca, once again, because you're not absolutely hammering the brakes for long periods of time, they withstood really well. No descent where you on the brakes for more than like 5 seconds. And that's even for the bigger ones. And yeah, they just didn't suffer with brake fade at all. So it was only in the UK where you're coming to those long descents with a sharp stop at the end where you had to brake for quite a long period of time where I noticed it. But if you're lighter, it's likely going to be less of an issue. The bedding in period for these brakes was really fast. I found it only took me one ride for them to feel like they were at their maximum power. So just do your usual stuff, build up to 30 k's an hour, strong braking down to like 10 or 0, whatever you want to do. But I just find a normal ride on the first ride tends to bed them in quite well and seem to work on these too. What about the looks of these things? I think they're actually a rather attractive brake. They're nice and wavy and bendy, but they look sleek, they look tidy, and they just give a very slight different look to your bike. People don't really notice brake rotors, and these kind of hide in the background as well. But for me, I think they're surprisingly attractive. Well guys, to conclude, just a few things to note. There's not that much to say on these. They do come in a 6-bolt configuration if you need to, which I think is meant to be a little bit lighter than the center locks that I have here. But in essence, they perform admirably. I think they perform as well as the Dura-Ace disc rotors and the Ultegra and the SRAM Force and Red. In terms of stopping power, I think they brake fade earlier when you're holding onto them for a long period of time, but as long as you know that behavior, as long as that you know they fade a bit earlier than the normal main brands do, then you're going to be just fine. You just change your braking habits and your braking behavior. I didn't notice it at all when I was out in Mallorca, so I think maybe it also depends a little bit where you live. And let's be quite honest, it's not very often that you actually have to be hard braking for more than 10 seconds. Yeah, probably not a problem if you're lighter than me. The reason probably is because, well, they are lighter, they have less steel there, so there's less metal to absorb that heat as well, so they'll heat up a little bit quicker, which makes sense. But yeah, if you are going for a weight weenie, lightweight build, I can recommend these. They've been quite good. Guys, if you have any further questions that you don't think I've answered in this video, I will reply to pretty much most things in the comments below, or you can find me over here on Instagram. I've been Jason, this has been Cycling Unboxed. See you in another video.